proud sponsor of the Score North Studios. Enjoy more of the things you love with TCL. These two guys have Minnesota sports flowing in their veins. Mackey and Judd on Score North and ScoreNorth.com.
But we got a team in here. This is like a chant. Now everybody come up here. We got to score. Let's go.
Is that Rob Brzezinski and Rick Spielman this morning after the NFL salary cap came down?
I don't think they're doing the skull chant necessarily after seeing what it was.
They're probably a little bit more depressed right now. I mean, they knew it was coming, but still, it is a day in which you now say to yourself, "Well, we really got to cut some guys, don't we? We got to cut some more guys."
It's higher than it was a couple weeks ago. I mean, it was reported that it may be 180. It's not going to go lower than 180, but it may be 180. And now we know it's 182.5.
If you're a football fan, this is absolutely going to be fantastic. If you're a team or if you love a veteran player, it probably sucks, right? Because it's like, we got to cut guys, or my favorite player might get cut. But if you're just a flat out, like me, red zone, meat-eating football fan, we are about to see so many guys lose their jobs. We are about to see teams have to just cut guys. Like this is going to be, this is now the polar opposite to me, boys, of baseball, which just gets so boring, right? It's like, it's big, Trevor Bauer, he's a free agent, and he will be for the next 4 months, right?
Yeah.
This is going to be guys being cut left and right. And here's my favorite part. This is also going to be big name players, not the biggest names, but big name players who get released and almost have to run for jobs. Because if you're like, I'm going to play hardball here, you're going to be waiting a long time.
Yeah, so there's going to be sort of an unprecedented amount of credible players on the street available, right? So I saw somebody, I don't know if it was over the cap, somebody said from 2013 through 2020, the cap went up an average of 7% or something. Is that possible? 7% per year seems aggressive. I'd have to go check the math. But basically, it's now coming down almost 10%. It's coming down 8% from where it was last year. Right. And so you're right. There's going to be all these names we've been kicking around for the Vikings, Joe Thuney, right? The obvious free agents.
Right.
There's going to be all kinds of other free agents that hit the streets that you might be able to get at a discount because of the salary cap situation. And just to set the scene here for people who are maybe not fully immersed in this like we have been the last few weeks. The Vikings are, according to Courtney Cronin and also according to overthecap.com, the Vikings are about $2.3 million over the salary cap of 182.5. So they have to, whether it's restructures or more cuts or trades or whatever it may be, just to get under the cap, they have to make moves. And then to make it so that they have 10 or 15 or 20 million in cap space, which might be tough, they have to make even more moves from there. But my biggest question to you guys is, why 182.5? Like, why not just a round number? What was the conversation to get? Like, I think it should be 183. I don't know. I think it should be 182. What if we compromise with a 0.5?
So
Thanks, NFL.
So it was in 2020 198.2. So they must take some type of revenue generator that they have and be like, oh, we'll give this amount to the cap. I don't know, but yeah, worst case that we saw months ago, and they confirmed, I think 2 or 3 weeks back, this wouldn't be the case. The worst case was the floor was going to be 175, which would have been absolute chaos. And then they came up to 2 weeks ago to say, no, we're not setting the cap yet, but the floor would be 180. And then they came back and said, but we're going to give you 182.5. Work with that.
So what does this mean? I do want to bring up where the Vikings rank in terms of cap space among other teams. According to overthecap.com, the Jaguars have the most cap space. They have $74 million in cap space.
Yep.
The Jets have $70 million in cap space. The Patriots actually have $68.5 million. So those are the three teams with absolutely the most cap space. And if you're the Jaguars or the Jets, you're probably going to have to pay someone like double what they would want to make for another team just to get them to come and play for your franchise. You scroll all the way down, and there are 10 teams that are above the cap right now, and the Vikings are one of them. The Vikings, the Bucks, the Giants, Packers, Falcons, Bears, Chiefs, Eagles, Rams, and Saints are all above the cap. Now, the Vikings, like we said, are 2.3 million over the cap. The Saints are $53 million over the cap. They just franchised a guy too. And the Rams are 33 million over. So as you soak this in, and as you eat your raw meat, football-loving Judd Zolgad.
Love my red zone. Love the raw meat. Love the football moves. Love people being unemployed, at least when it comes to football players. Yeah, it's great stuff.
So what does this mean for you?
This means the Vikings have to make a decision, and they probably have made this, but we don't know it. What is their plan for, or their desire to be active on the free agent market when that officially starts? Well, the legal tampering period starts, I think, probably on Sunday, correct? And then the actual kickoff of free agency is, I believe, Central Time, 3 p.m. on Wednesday. So what it means to me is if the Vikings want to be active there, they are going to have to make some tough moves. If they're going to dip their toe in, I think they need to make at least one move. If they actually want to be active, it's more than that. A few things occur to me about players when it comes to this. One is Riley Reiff, as good as he was at left tackle, Phil Mackey, either has to restructure significantly or he's gone. And here's why. If they cut him, so he's due a base salary in 2021 of $6.7 million, okay? If they cut him, the dead cash that goes against the cap that we're talking about is 3.2, which is not a small amount, but it's not big. Their cap savings, and this is the substantial thing, and this is why he's gone, unless he says, I will extend my contract and push out the contract, restructure it. The cap savings, $11.75 million. And so like that right there is the very move that I think gets you below the cap. It puts you in decent shape. Now, if you plan to make more moves off of that, and you know what? Let's say pie in the sky, they have said, Thuney is our guy. We might not get him, but we're going to pursue him. Then you have to make more moves. The shame of this is, and I am not faulting him because it's a business decision, and it is, at least on Purple Daily, an appreciation week towards him. The shame of this is that it feels like they don't have a better working relationship with their quarterback to do the Tom Brady, hey, you know what would really help us right now is if we could restructure you again, and we'll put, you know what, we'll give you an extra year, which I don't really like, but I mean, that's the ideal, right? Because like then you could, that where people think and get confused, and they're not entirely wrong, where they think that the cap is fake is especially when you have star players, which starts with your quarterback. The cap was fake with the Patriots because Brady just continually said, that's fine. Let's do this. Let's do that. Right. So the confusion of, well, the cap is fake. The Vikings can sign a ton of guys. You guys don't get it. Is no, that's not true unless your quarterback, starting with him, says, you know what, cool with me. I plan on being here for the long term. Let's redo my 2021 cap hit because I want to win and I will take less. Business decision, tough decision, but that's where there's growing confusion about, the cap is only fake when your star players say, cool.
Yeah, and to add to what you're saying here, if you just start with cutting players flat out, like if you just want to say, who can the Vikings cut? They've already cut Rudolph. They cut Dan Bailey yesterday. Mm-hmm. In what order of cutting players will you be able to save the most money to the salary cap? And you already mentioned Riley Reiff. You would save $11.75 million to the salary cap. That would solve, in terms of cap space, that would solve a lot of problems, right? It would get you under the cap by like $9 million. And then you could make some other moves and restructures. And now you're kind of on your way. Well, the problem with that is he's your left tackle. And so if you're trying to win a Super Bowl in 2021, I don't know, uprooting your above average left tackle situation and either putting a guy in Ezra Cleveland who played left tackle in college at a high enough level to be drafted in the second round. That's great, but he's never played left tackle in the NFL. There's going to be an adjustment period. Not saying you can't do it, but like you should definitely think twice or three times before you just flat cut your left tackle. But if you cut him, you're going to save almost $12 million. All right. The next guy on the list, if you were to just flat out cut this player, you would save $10.25 million to the salary cap, fixing a lot of problems cap-wise. Harrison Smith. You could say goodbye to Harrison Smith, who's in his 30s now, right? He's like 31. Hall of Fame player in my book, one of the great safeties of the last 20 years. But he's getting a little older, right? Maybe he doesn't move as well as he used to. Maybe he's taken an extra hit or two, and the damage has piled up. Ideally, you would find a way to bring him back on a lesser number, but I'm just throwing it out there. You could save $10.25 million if you cut Harrison Smith.
He'll restructure, and the one thing is, if you ever wanted to see Zim throw himself in the train tracks, it's on that one, right?
I agree.
Mike, we got a great idea. What's that? We're gonna cut Harrison. No. I would say if you went to Mike and said, all right, Riley Reiff, okay, yeah, he's gone. That's fine. Harrison Smith, hell no. So I do think that Smith will redo his contract, and I do think that cap hit will come down. I believe that as far as like him being outright gone on this team, there's probably about a 3% chance. Like
yeah.
It's got to be so low.
And like with a guy like Harrison Smith, I think it's more likely that you would trade him than cut him. Although I don't know how much leverage you would have.
If you've got Barr on your list, that's the trade candidate that I think is intriguing, and I think Mike would discuss that one.
Yeah, and so I'll give you two more. Anthony Barr is one of them. So you would, if you flat cut Anthony Barr, you'd save Now you'd have to eat 7.8 in dead money, but you'd save 7.2 million in cap space. Of course, you'd be without a second starting linebacker because Eric Wilson is also. This is the problem. Let's say you say, oh, Eric Wilson, you can just bring Eric Wilson back. Well, if you cut Anthony Barr and you save the 7.2, you're probably gonna have to pay Eric Wilson $7 million. Yeah. So I don't know. It's kind of you're basically swapping Barr for Wilson and you'd be saving no money. Here's the fourth one. All right, we're talking chunks. If you just flat cut players, you could save $8 million to the cap, according to overthecap.com, if you cut Adam Thielen. I'm just throwing it out there.
Oh,
I'm just throwing it out there.
You can't cut. You might not know this, but he played at Mankato, and he's from Minnesota. Okay,
I agree.
Great story. How can you? I wonder if he would restructure too. He'd be a guy that you could go to and be like, "Yeah, hometown team, baby, hometown team." Might tell you. I think there is a chance that among the group that you just gave us, that Barr like balks, and that Reiff says, you screwed me once, you're not screwing me twice. Thielen and Smith, I think if you approached about restructures, especially extending them and in both cases, getting them a bit more guaranteed money, I think there might be a case to be made that they would do it.
And then obviously the biggest sort of fish in the sea, if you're looking to carve out cap space for 2021, is Kirk Cousins. And that's what you brought up. It's like this was almost unthinkable a year ago. It's like, all right, you went to that well last year. Every time you go to that well, you're adding guaranteed money to a future season.
Right.
And where I'm at with this is I don't love Kirk Cousins at that price tag. You and I have both been very vocal about this. I would be really, really hesitant to continue putting eggs in the 2021 basket and pushing out, your quarterback flexibility. Yes, you could create probably 10 to 12 to $15 million in cap space if you restructured him this year. But where that would put you in 2022 and 23 is in a really, really hard spot with him, almost making him untradeable. He's actually a lot more tradable now because a team would look at his number and say, yeah, we could add a third year. We would take Kirk Cousins for 3 years. Like San Francisco would probably say, I know it's 2 years left on the contract. We'll make it a third year. We'll smooth out those cap hits and we'll make it more manageable. I don't know what the Vikings are going to do here. I think they want to be aggressive in free agency. Somebody else suggested on Twitter here to us last night, could you take Danielle Hunter, give him a contract extension, bring his $17 million cap hit for this year down to like 10, let's say,
Yes.
and then have the cap hits go up in 22, 23, 24. That's an idea. So you could I'm just making these numbers up, but his cap hit is $17.2 million for 2021. He's the highest paid non-quarterback on the roster. Could you get him what he wants, which is a bunch of guaranteed money, a signing bonus? Now we're really in the weeds here. A signing bonus you could smooth out over 4 years or something and push the big cap numbers into 22, 3, 4, and 2025, saving yourself $7 million for this year. Stuff like that. Like, these are conversations that they're having right now behind the scenes, and it'll be really interesting to see what comes out of the next week or so.
And I think if it weren't for the neck problem, the Hunter conundrum could be solved exactly how the person on Twitter explained it, because I like that, and I think it's probably smart. And if he is healthy, he deserves a big payday. He took a really bad contract. Like, I can't say that enough. Danielle Hunter's people took a terrible contract. Like, there was no excuse. You don't just say, oh yeah, we'll take that, unless you really don't get how good your client might be or is. So if the Vikings are convinced that Danielle Hunter's neck is going to be absolutely fine, then I think that what the person on Twitter said is 1,000% right. Go do that. Back to Cousins, though, Phil, and here's the problem. I don't know, like, this is not a short-term problem. This is a 2-year issue. It's an issue right now, which you can basically, I guess, sort of solve by making different moves and almost ignoring Kirk at this point in time. But a year from now, you can't ignore this. And I don't think the cap is going to, I think by 2023, and at the time that these new TV deals start to kick in, because they're going to be huge, the cap is going to explode. I don't know it's going to explode right back up in 2022. And so, when you look at, for instance, what Dak Prescott's cap hit is going to be in 2022, which is going to be substantial, it's still not going to be Kirk's. Like, you are sitting there with a cap hit that nobody who wants to win a Super Bowl, I don't care if you've got, unless the cap just goes through the roof again, nobody who wants to win a Super Bowl can have that cap hit. And so, yes, we're talking about, it would be nice if Kirk would do this right now to help the team. He doesn't have to, but it also becomes even more imperative. And the one thing where I'm with you, though, is the sad thing is I'm not really interested in extending him. So I guess my question is to Spielman and Rob Brzezinski, what's your plan here? Like, what's the answer? Because if in 1 year we're deliberating about a $45 million salary cap hit, and let's say the cap jumps back up, let's say it goes up to, like, I don't know, 203 or something, right? Like, it gets back up, but it doesn't go incrementally as high as it should have. What's your plan now? Like, is your plan to go back to Kirk and plead and extend him again? And Kirk says, I don't really want to, but okay, for more guaranteed cash, I'll fall on the sword here, guys. Is that your plan? Is your plan to try and deal him off of that contract? That's my question. And I'm sure they've thought of this. I don't know what the answer is going to be, though.
Yeah, like, this is, the Vikings have been stuck in this exact spot for the better part of my life, which is, and I'm not saying like the cap situation, I'm saying they're good and they're trying to go from good to great. And they always stumble. Like, when it comes time to good to great, we got to cross that bridge. They always whiff on the quarterback that they're trying to draft, or something goes awry with an injury, or they lose the NFC Championship game, or something. Something happens. And in this case, I think the thing that's standing in front of them is the fear of becoming the New York Jets or the Cleveland Browns, in terms of, well, if we say goodbye to Kirk, it means that we now run the risk of being like a 3-13 team and having no quarterback. And I think people overplay that risk. Like, give yourself a little more credit than that. The Vikings have put together division winners with some of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. And so I would like, in terms of going back to the Kirk contract discussion here, because it all ties together with the salary cap announcement today.
Mm-hmm.
I would draw a line in the sand and I would say, we can get creative, but we are not adding another year to that contract. And so if that means that we have to have a staring contest, and put it this way, if the Vikings decide, listen, we don't want to restructure. We're not even going to ask you. We don't want to restructure. We just want, there's 2 years left in this contract. The second year is absurd. It's the highest cap number in the NFL. And we'll just cross that bridge when we come to it. I think if you got through this season, even with him making like the 5th most money of any quarterback, and you're not going to win a Super Bowl with him making that much money. So you just have to sort of get through this season and do it however, like build the roster however you can, being ready for Kirk to no longer be your quarterback at some point. Mm-hmm. Once you got up to the 2022 offseason where his cap number is $45 million, that then signals essentially a forced trade. Like the reason why his agent negotiated the biggest cap number among any NFL quarterback is essentially to set up another discussion point, right? That, all right, well, we got 1 year left on this thing. Are you going to extend him and restructure again, or are you going to trade him to a team that will? That's the discussion. And I would draw that line in the sand. No matter what happens over the next week with cuts, with salary cap, I am done adding years to the 12th best quarterback in the NFL's contract. I would rather have a rookie quarterback like a Trey Lance making $5 million and spend the rest of that money on building a monster roster. That's what I would look to do. Give yourself some flexibility at that position. It was the right move 3 years ago. It would be the wrong move right now to keep putting age 35, age 36 on the table contractually.
So here's where you're stuck too, right? So those who are chiming in or listening to our conversation right now are going to over the cap themselves, and they're saying, Judd and Phil, come on, guys. The dead cap hit, if Kirk Cousins is let go for the 2021 or 22 season, is $10 million. The savings are $35 million. So they'll just cut ties, right? He's gone. Here's the problem. If you cut ties, if you release Kirk Cousins after the 2021 season, the third day of the league year this year, which is basically in about a week and a half, mm-hmm. is guaranteed. So that contract is. So do you really think that the Wilfs are going to say, "Oh, cool idea, Rick, cool idea, Mike. Oh, Rob, you really got them. We have to pay the full amount of that contract in 2022 so that Kirk Cousins can play elsewhere." And yes, it might offset slightly if he signs a contract, with a different team, but they still have to pay a huge part of that freight. That's the problem. So it's actually not a football problem. It's a just financial problem. But that is why 3 days after the league year, when it comes to Cousins, is so important right now. Because if he is on that roster, that 22 salary locks in. And so you're stuck. So if the Wilfs say, Phil, to Rick and Brzezinski and the boys, okay, we're stuck here. If you keep Kirk by that, Saturday, he is your quarterback, barring injury, in 2021 and 22. What do you do as far as when you get done with the 21 season and now you are looking March of 2022 dead in the face, and we're talking about your salary cap, we're talking about a quarterback who's good but not great with a $45 million cap hit, and an ownership group that tells you we are not allowing this guy to be released. So he is, unless you could trade the last year of that contract, he's yours. What's your answer if he says, I'm not restructuring, I'm playing this out?
Yeah, that would essentially be him saying, you can trade me to the 49ers, right?
Right.
I mean, if he wants to.
San Fran's like, okay, 7th round pick. Mm-hmm. Like, they've got you.
If Kirk Cousins really wants to be, like he says, he wants to finish his career here, and he might play until he doesn't know how long he wants to play, but he could see himself maybe playing for 5 more years or whatever, or into his late 30s.
Yep.
Then if that's the case, wouldn't a restructure be an easy discussion? Like if you want to play here forever, and the Vikings seem to be happy with him putting up his fantasy numbers and stuff, right? They were happy with that Saints game. If both sides love each other and they're into this marriage, they will restructure this contract to help the 2021 cap. That's what will happen. I don't love the marriage because I don't think he's good enough as a highly paid quarterback to make up for some of the roster deficiencies. And I don't think he's good enough in big moments against good teams. And the numbers sort of bear that out over time. But if both sides feel the same way about Kirk being the Vikings quarterback, as long as he wants to be, as long as he's physically capable of, then they will restructure here in the next week or so. So if they don't restructure in the next week or so, it means one side or the other is not into the marriage.
Well, and Kirk basically publicly said, without completely coming out and saying it, I'm good. So like the answer is pretty much out there. I'm good. I'm going to. So Kirk, right or wrong, and I will give him credit. He and his camp are shrewd. Like they have maximized. For a guy who is good but not great, they have made millions upon millions, and it's impressive. But I really think that Kirk does not look at this as a partnership. I think that Kirk looks at the Vikings and himself as an employer-employee relationship. And furthermore, he looks at this and says, at my age, I have one more good contract left to get. And I think he wants that contract. And furthermore, I think he might get it, because the statistics are impressive. There are, I'm sure, lots of teams that side with the Cousins stands of, yeah, but I mean, he is pretty good. I saw an article this weekend out of Washington saying, why didn't Washington just keep him? Because in retrospect, they've been searching for a starting quarterback since he left. It would have been simpler just to pay him. And I think it was a comparison to what Dak Prescott with Dallas, who hadn't signed at the time, was going through. Anyway, long story short, Kirk knows this. And so what I think Kirk wants to do, and it might be from the Vikings, probably not, but he wants to leverage one more contract at the end of the third year of this contract, which does not mean being in a relationship. He is in an open marriage, Phil.
Yeah.
That's what he is in. He is in an open marriage. He goes to football key parties all the time. And he picks out new keys, and you never know what room. Hey, it's the Eagles' bedroom. This is awesome. Hey, look at this. I'm in the Rams' bedroom. Hey, Sean McVay.
Oh, my God.
That's what Kirk is. He's a football philanderer.
It's all fun and games until you wander into Bill Belichick's bedroom. Then it gets a little weird.
Bill Kirk.
Bill is just sitting in there. The lights are dim. He's got football all 22 film. He's just wearing a sleeveless hoodie, some tube socks, and nothing else.
Oh, can I throw one piece to go back to Reiff of
reckless speculation
just through the grapevine? Okay. There might be a plan if Reiff says, peace out, boys. No pay cut, no restructure. And by the way, what I'm about to say does not solve the problems, but it is an interesting thought. Brian O'Neill being moved to left tackle, which we talked about last year. It didn't happen, certainly in part because they did not have off-season camps. And I don't know that they're going to again. I'm sure that they'll do virtual things, but I don't know that they'll actually have the spring and summer camps. Brian O'Neill, though, he's pretty good. That is quite a transition, but there might be thought about him replacing Reiff, so you don't have to go sign a left tackle. At least that would be their plan.
Do you think it's more likely if it doesn't work out with Reiff, is it more likely that Brian O'Neill or Ezra Cleveland would play left tackle next year?
I think Brian O'Neill. I think that they like Cleveland. But when you put him at guard, like you liked him, and he didn't start from day one at guard, which struck me as weird as well. Like, I mean, look at the guys that they started. And it's like, okay, so you're telling me that this guy couldn't have stepped in and played? Like, that makes no sense. That speaks to me of a disconnect in the amount of trust that they had compared to what we probably thought. So I think there's a much better chance that if Reiff walks and the option for left tackle is internal, that it's actually O'Neill. And then I guess my question becomes, would you kick Cleveland from right guard to right tackle, which I don't love, or say it with me, do you have faith in another guy that you have developed? This time it'd be Oli Udoh playing right tackle. But I'm so leery now, Phil, of this, right? Like every time we've developed this guy, you don't understand, wait till you see Drew Samia. Oh my God, I just saw him. I'm about to throw up. So I don't know. Like, I'm not saying that this is a great idea. I'm saying I would not be shocked if they thought if they did this.
What you're saying is Brian O'Neill is insurance for the Vikings at left tackle. And as a business owner, if you're a Minnesota fan and you're a business owner, think about how helpful it would be for you to have employee training at your fingertips, industry resources that can help your business reach another level of success. Well, that's why Federated Mutual Insurance Company recently launched My Shield. I think the Purple might need My Shield for their offensive line if things don't go the right way over the next week or so. But My Shield is the online client destination for risk management resources. They have resources to help your business with all of your risk management needs. At Federated, remember, you can go to the website, federatedinsurance.com, or download the app to find out more about My Shield. And remember, it's our business to protect yours, just like it's the Vikings' business to protect Kirk Cousins. If he's going to be your quarterback, then you should be all in over the next week or so on figuring out how to bring somebody in, whether it's left guard or left tackle if Reiff leaves, to keep Kirk Cousins comfortable in that pocket. Don't forget daily Vikings conversations too on the Purple Daily podcast. We are your daily destination for Vikings entertainment and hot takes and reckless speculation, and Judd talking too in-depth about his love for Cool Whip, which was a theme in the comments yesterday.
From people yesterday that was listening to the pod, and they were very, let's just say, surprised that Judd Zulgad likes to dabble in his Cool Whip. The sound effect, I think, is what absolutely kills me.
That's a different kind of banana split that Judd's working on there.
Well, the philandering quarterback, Kirk Cousins, don't forget it.
Yeah. All right. Write that down, predictions on the other side.